Joseph.
And I'm Nick.
This is Fish Jelly.
Yes,
How are you?
I'm okay, recovering still, but good. And
Hmm.
you?
Well, same as always. We're recording this early because you're leaving
On a jet plane.
to a place far away, and maybe you'll return.
I'm pretty sure forecast is that I am returning.
Pretty sure. Well, I guess we'll see. It's Black History Month,
It is. It
so
is.
enjoy that while you can.
There's no one that can take that away from us, okay?
Well, I mean, we thought a lot of things wouldn't happen, but here we are. Uh, we attended the Los Angeles Film Critics Association Awards last night. People may have seen that I posted a couple of pictures,
Mm-hmm.
one of which was with me and Keith David.
Uh-huh.
I was very excited to see Keith David. When he walked in, I screamed, "We love Keith David."
Yes.
And he looked at me like, okay.
And then I might have laughed in his face, but yeah.
So that was awkward.
We were 2 glasses of wine in on an empty stomach, and it was a stressful day yesterday, so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you to Matt for encouraging me to ask for a photo,
Yes.
which he took.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't normally get excited. I mean, I'm not like jaded, like who cares about celebrities? I do think it's cool when I see people I recognize
Of course it's
and I
cool,
get
yeah.
giddy, but there are certain people who, well, it's hard to predict because like the times that I've been like in very close proximity to Janet Jackson, I get very anxious. Like I do not want to meet her
Uh-huh.
because the last time my brother-in-law was with us
Uh-huh.
and he was like, "Are you crazy? She is right there. Why won't you go say something?" And I'm like, because he knows how much I
I
love
think
her, and I think it just was like, I mean, there's no way I could meet her.
well, I think there's a difference between if you were completely on your own and there are other witnesses that know you personally, like that's what makes me anxious. So, like there were a lot of interesting people there last night, but also a lot of people that are uh quote unquote colleagues who I'm not particularly close with that I don't want seeing me vulnerable in any way.
I don't, sure, that makes sense to me. I don't think that it was, or that I'm like, oh, because there are other people around. It's just there's like, I don't know. It seems hit or miss because if I think about, you could ask me like, well, who are people who you would be excited to meet? It'd be hard to say maybe until they're in front of me.
Right.
Like I think if Jack A. Harry were in front of me, I don't know how I'd react
Hmm.
because I feel like she wouldn't be very nice, but I would expect her not to be nice because that's her personality. But I
Hmm.
really like her.
Well, you never know. It's their mood, it's your mood. We are all human.
But Keith David was lovely, and he was there to present.
Well, as soon as I walked in, I'm like, as he walked in, I'm like, why is he here? I'm like, oh, because we gave lifetime achievement to John Carpenter, so that was who they selected.
But let me back up. I got ahead of myself. So it was very rainy last night.
Hmm.
So so that always feels weird to go to an event when it's raining, especially in LA where it never rains. But we rode in a car to the hotel, which it was the award ceremony was at the Biltmore downtown. And the car we were in had a huge like screen in the back seat.
Hmm.
So I asked the driver if he could put it down so we could watch something because I was just curious how it worked. So we watched last year's Super Bowl halftime performance, which neither of us had seen.
I think I'd seen clips of it.
Had you?
Yeah, I know. When I saw Mary collapse, I'm like, oh, I remember that.
Oh, see, I was not
Hmm.
expecting her to just fall on the ground like purposeful or purposely. But we arrived. The the event had to be rescheduled because the original ceremony was during the fires. So of course, that wasn't the best time to have it. I am surprised as many people showed up last night as they did
Yes.
because I'm sure, all of these people have very busy schedules.
Well, and then, yeah, it's been a long award season. The Oscars still have to happen.
Yeah.
Many of these people will also be in attendance there.
But it's a cool, like, this is my second time going, and it's in the same space. I think it's a really cool space because it's pretty intimate.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Sound issues, though.
I do have to complain about the sound because, of course, there's a stand where people are giving their speeches, and then a big monitor that shows some video, and then some of the acceptance speeches were sent in via video. But there are four speakers placed around what is basically like a conference room that's set up to be like a nice dining room. But two of the four speakers weren't working. And we were sitting on the side with the two speakers that weren't working. So that was annoying. And the sound engineer who I saw tinkering around, he kept like leaving and then coming back very nonchalantly, like, oh, well, it's not working. I didn't get the sense that he was trying to fix anything. And then I'm assuming someone spoke to him because then he brought in like someone else
Mhm.
and it seemed like they were trying to fix it. But the ceremony started at 8 p.m.
Uh-huh.
and they didn't start tinkering around till what, like 10?
Yeah.
So the shit is damn near over. I don't know why y'all worried about it now. But yeah, that was a complaint. But do you want to talk about some of the more memorable moments from
Uh,
like people accepting their speeches
oh god.
or giving? So immediately, uh oh gosh, who directed Halloween?
Well, John Carpenter.
John
So that
Carpenter.
was a memorable moment. John Carpenter being there, yes.
So Keith David, you were saying when
Yeah.
we walked in, or when you saw him walk in, you were curious, like, why is he here? And then it clicked. Oh, because he's done.
A couple films with him, but I mean, The Thing, of course, but Keith really shines in They Live.
So Keith gets up to introduce, well, John Carpenter had two people.
Well, technically 3 because there was
There was a LAFCA member who spoke a little bit,
yeah,
and then they introduced Keith David, who then got up and spoke. And of course, what is Keith David's Instagram handle? Like the silver throat or
so
something?
yes.
But he does have that amazing voice. So he gave a very nice talk about what John Carpenter means to him because he talks about wanting so badly to be in film and that John Carpenter gave him his break.
He was telling funny little, things in his speech too about how several cast members from The Thing he would go on to do other things with, and he mentioned doing a production of Titus Andronicus in Central Park. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, because it didn't strike me, but I could see in your face you were like, "What?"
What did that look like?
He said John Carpenter was the first person to ever tell him that they wrote a role specifically for him.
Yeah.
Um, he talked about how much he liked working with John Carpenter, and yeah, just had really nice things to say about
As
the.
you would expect from someone that's there to give you a speech for your Lifetime Achievement Award, but it's funny they chose well, maybe Kurt Russell wasn't available because for a lot I think when people think of John Carpenter and his masterpieces, Kurt Russell does come to mind, right?
Sure.
Or Jamie Lee Curtis, but, I think I'm glad that it was Keith. I think that
Oh yeah.
yeah, I thought that was very unexpected.
And then a very famous cinematographer,
Oh, whose name, like, when they introduced him, like, "Who is that?" Because the sound, but it's Dean Cundey.
and he gave a very nice introduction to John Carpenter, talking about what he means to him and all the opportunities he's been able to have because of the work he's done with John Carpenter. That was really lovely.
But I mean, he's gone on to do. I mean, he blends Jurassic Park. Spielberg's used him a few times. I mean, Ron Howard, a lot of people.
John Carpenter didn't get up and say anything.
Yeah, he did.
He did?
Yes, he accepted his awards.
Oh, I don't remember him
He,
talking.
he gave a very short speech, and it was about when, and he said in 1951 when he was 3 years old. His
Oh,
parents took him to the African Queen.
you're right. He did.
I think we were 3 glasses in by then, but, uh
Yeah, I was pretty.
but he said that asked, "Where are those people?" i.e., the actors in the movie, and his parents
You're right.
pointed up to the lights coming from the projection booth, and he said, "They're in there."
He
So
gave a really cute anecdote about not understanding how the motion picture works.
yes, and, so he spent his life chasing the light.
Oh, you're right. I feel so stupid because he did give a very nice short acceptance
But
speech.
that reminded me of being a kid when your parents try to explain, 'cause there I was having a full-blown memory, relapse into my mother taking me home saying, "We're gonna record Pete's Dragon on
You're like,
TV."
how?
I'm like, "We're gonna make." I'm like, "How? What do you mean? We're gonna make a tape." I'm like, "How are we gonna make our own
What
tape?"
is this witchcraft?
I'm like out of wood? Like we're gonna like I imagine whittling a VHS tape out of wood. But
Mhm.
oh, those the innocent ages.
And then I think it was the cinematographer or the editor for Nickel Boys, who I
Uh,
swore was gay. And then he, and I was convinced he was gay the entire
that was
speech.
Jomo. That was the cinematographer.
The cinematographer for Nickel Boys, because I had noticed him when he walked in because of how he was dressed. I would have bet good money he was gay. And then he gave his entire lengthy acceptance speech, fully thought he was gay.
Good money.
And then he goes, well, good money for me is like $25. But he at the very end of his speech, he goes, I want to thank my wife. I'm like, oh shit. But he gave a very nice acceptance speech and talked about the fires in LA and how people make assumptions that everyone hears, like has money and can afford to get over it. But I don't know. I thought it was very considerate um,
I mean, yes,
to address it.
they're very elite parts of the city, but this really is a working class city.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's so expensive that
That this not just because of
I mean,
that.
if you make double the national average, you're still struggling.
Like a lot of the people that are packed in here, I mean, are not. Uh, I think a lot of people really are living check to check, if that.
Some other memorable moments. Who's the guy from Honora I like?
Yura Borisov.
So he wasn't able to attend, but he sent in a video, and I thought it was really cute.
It was cute. I guess yeah. Nora was his first English speaking role.
He addressed that he's still working on his English, but I thought he was very cute. And then Mikey Madison, who I didn't realize is from the Valley, from Woodland Hills.
Hmm.
I thought that lady was Russian. I don't know why.
Well, because she's playing someone that is in the film.
You're sure, so I guess I'm not too ignorant, but I fully thought she was not American. But the person who introduced her award was like, "Oh, it was
Christy.
Christy from Breakfast All Day."
Hmm.
She had said in her little intro that they're both Valley girls. And when she said it, I'm like, what the hell is she talking about? But I thought Mikey Madison's speech was really cute. And you said she reminded you of
Well, she was all dolled up. She looked great, but I was like, she was giving me Pia Zadora vibes.
well, because as soon as the video cuts on, all you see is lips.
Yes.
She's a beautiful lady, and
Hmm.
those are some luscious lips. But yeah, when you said Pia Zadora, I thought, oh yeah, she's
But then her speech pattern was reminding me of who it reminded me of the character of Shaka Khan on Got to Be Real,
yes, because she was very soft spoken.
but talk kind of fast. And however they paint Shaka on that web series is what she was giving me.
Kieran Culkin won an award,
Supporting actor, yeah.
but he wasn't there to accept it. So in his place, Jesse Eisenberg accepted the award. And I thought he was funny.
Yeah, he was cute.
And then he won an award.
Screenplay, yeah.
So I thought his speech for his own award was really sweet because he talked about how he does appreciate critics, even though isn't he famous for bashing critics?
Oh yeah, he's been. I mean, I remember he wrote a short story in the New Yorker that was basically bashing film critics. But I think he first of all he said the L.A. Film Critics Association. I didn't know that L.A. and film critics went together, which fair. But when his speech for best screenplay, he was talking about, he said he had a negative reaction to his first film, which was When You Finish Saving the World with Julianne Moore and Finn Wolfhard, which we did review, which I saw at Sundance. That played at Cannes and Critics Week. I liked that film. I thought a lot of love and care went into it, and I think Julianne Moore is beautiful in it. But he was talking about negative, how he, while he was writing A Real Pain, he was reading negative critiques of When You Finish Saving the World, and it made him change some things up. But if I'm, I think A Real Pain is a good film, but I had more of an emotional response, I think, to When You Finish Saving the World personally. Um, and I think they're both good, and I think he's actually turning out to be quite a talented director. Um, but yeah,
Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross won for,
best score.
and they weren't able to attend, but they did send in a video. And I thought that video was so funny because it's the two of them sitting on like the couch, like a couch with a Nine Inch Nails poster behind them. None of it's centered, none of it's set up nicely. Trent Reznor looks so bored. He's
Yes,
just like holding his head in his hand. But Atticus Ross, I thought, gave a very um kind of like, he was just kind of talking like very flase da. But then at the end, he goes, "I'm so bummed we can't be there because I know John Carpenter's there." So I thought that was nice
yes.
that at least they acknowledge that they know what's happening because they
Hmm.
seemed real bored. And then the Iranian director
Mohammed Rasulov. Yep,
for The Seed of the Sacred Fig,
yep.
he gave a very nice speech. Apparently, he doesn't speak English, so he had a translator. But I thought,
Who was also one of the actors in the film.
oh, was she? I
Hmm.
haven't seen it, but I thought both of them. His words were very lovely, but her translating his words were also very lovely.
Hmm.
So that was a nice acceptance speech. And then Marianne Jean Baptiste,
She was there. Yep.
she accepted her award for Best Actress or Lead Performance. And I thought she looked fantastic. She was really sweet. I thought it was cute. She was kind of nervous and fumbling over her words. And she said, "It's so crazy. I get nervous when I have to
Be me.
speak
Be me.
as myself." And she's like, "Maybe I should do it as my character from Hard Truths."
Pansy.
Pansy. And she's like, "No, maybe that's not the best way to approach it." Because for people who don't know, her character in that is like a difficult woman.
Viciously unhappy.
But she talked about Mike Lee's process and the cinematographer on Hard Truths who recently died.
Yes,
And
Dick Pope. Yeah, remember I saw that the day after he died.
so I thought she was really lovely.
Yes.
What are some other moments?
Sean Baker.
Oh, well, I'll save him to the end because I thought he was the best.
Hmm.
But Vera Drew,
Oh, Vera Drew's speech was great too.
I thought she was really fun.
She
She just
won.
talked. Oh, go ahead.
She won the New Generation Award for The People's Joker.
Yes, and I just thought she seemed, she talked about how scared she was when Warner Brother. For people who don't know, her movie is basically like a Batman. I mean, well, it's more like Batman DC sort of alternate universe.
Yes.
But
Hmm.
I think the way they were able to get away with it is that it's considered like parody.
Yes.
It's quite the accomplishment, and for people who haven't seen it, it's definitely worth a watch. We reviewed it.
Hmm.
I thought she was really funny and honest, and then she talked about John Carpenter, which was really cool because she's standing right in front of him and directing her comments to him and the cinematographer, and then she has a tattoo of Back to the Future,
Hmm.
which um,
Cundy.
lensed.
Hmm.
So I mean, that felt really. It felt special witnessing her be able to say this to these people.
Well, yeah, and I think the shout out to Carpenter was that his films taught her kind of the element of anti-authoritarianism,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
there's not many people working in studio films that since his time that have done that.
But for sure, my favorite moment was Sean Baker
Yes, well, Sean is a lovely person.
because he came across so nice and chill and like I've seen how many of his films? 3?
Yeah,
I've
you
seen Anora, Tangerine, and Red Rocket, and I
Ver
really liked all of them.
Verdrew also shouted out Tangerine as the first
That's right.
time that she phrased it as women that
Share the same gender
experienced,
experience.
that were presented with dignity.
I mean, that's pretty amazing to
Yeah.
be able to say that to the person, and then
Right.
I'm sure for Sean Baker, that felt nice.
Yes. Well, I hope so. But you should go back, and his earlier films are great too. But because I fell in love with his work with Starlet, which I believe was his third film with Mariel Hemingway's daughter.
But his speech was really fun because he talked about how much he appreciated Lafka, and he even shouted out like 4 different critics
Hmm.
who sort of helped him along the way. And then he talked about John Carpenter and to like right in front of him, which was really cool. And then he ended his speech by saying, I thought of myself as somewhat of a critic at one point. And then this man, I think I forget what the outlet was. Oh,
Fangoria.
but he said when he was 17, he wrote in a comment that the magazine published. And so
He wrote it was technically a review.
a review that they published. And so he said he went to his storage unit in like Woodland Hills somewhere, Thousand Oaks, and had to go find it. And he pulled it out and then he read from it. So he read this review he wrote of the movie
The Blob.
The Blob. And I just thought that was like the perfect, you know, when you watch telecast award shows, of course they have to keep with time, and
Hmm.
a lot of people's speeches get cut off short. And I did think some of the people who spoke last night talked too much,
Sure.
but he's an example of someone who like needed a little extra time because it was enjoyable
Yes.
listening to him.
His review of The Blob referenced Carpenter's The Thing.
Hmm. So that, and but even like the way he was reading his own words and interjecting about how this is embarrassing and I
Hmm.
don't think this anymore was really funny.
Hmm.
So it'd be fun to see him if he wins an Academy Award.
Yeah, I think that movie's going to take home something for sure. But yeah, if he won Best Picture, because just shocking that because they mentioned the budget of Anora, 6.5 million. He's like, and that's a micro budget these days. And it's like, God, that's crazy. 6.5 million's a micro budget.
Well, what's crazy is how, I mean, I think the film feels very slick, Honora,
Yes.
and I don't have any gripes with the production or anything. And then to think there are films that cost 20 times that amount that are like, where did all the money go? Like,
Oh, that was another highlight. The production designer for The Brutalist.
oh, yes, and I don't recall her name, but I thought she gave a very lovely speech because she says, I like this might be the only time I ever get to say these things.
Yeah, because nobody else. She said this was the first time that she was given an award for her work.
But I thought that because the main character,
Judy
that
Becker.
Judy Becker, the main character in The Brutalist, Adrian Brody plays Laszlo
Toth. Yep.
Toth. Um, I love the way she spoke about it because she basically said, like, I did such a good job in this damn movie that people think that's a real architect.
Do you no wait? So I saw that in Venice. Remember, I'd read Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, so which confused some people that were talking to me there. They're like, "Is this based on that?" I'm like, "No, it's there. There's some elements." But the morning after we watched that film, because it's Venice where all the critics gather is small. All these critics were asking each other, I can't find anything about Laszlo Toth online. And I'm like, that's because he's not real. It's not a biopic.
But I love the way she phrased it. Like, yeah, I did such a good job on this damn movie that y'all fools think this is a real person.
It's treated with the gravitas that suggests that yes, this all really happened to
Well,
somebody.
she says that I basically had to become him, like
Yeah.
to create this world. And she talked about that movie had a tiny budget of 10 million. And she talked about how important it is because on some projects that have more money, if something's not working, they just throw more money at it.
Yeah.
And then clearly that shit doesn't work either. But then the way she talked about how like having a limited budget actually inspired her because she actually had to find like solutions that work,
Yes.
and the end result is what we received, which I think is excellent.
Which, that I think what is so powerful about cinema is that it's never the work of one person. It is all these elements coming together, and almost everything is flawed because of that. But like you get such odd combinations of things because there's all these elements that are really working together or and against one another. So I don't know. It's always like we're gonna see what we get.
Oh, and one of the screenwriters for September 5,
Oh yeah.
he
Hmm.
approached us and thanked us for our thoughtful review of September
I'm so
5.
glad I held the door for him earlier.
And
Uh,
then he was trying to say that he really thought our pull quotes um like encapsulated perfectly what we thought of the movie,
yes.
which is nice. I think that we often get comments like, "What are you saying? Pull quote?" The pull quote is what we use for the Rotten Tomatoes review.
Yes.
So, like, if you like, if you see us on Rotten Tomatoes,
That's what it is. Yeah.
that's what it is.
Because before we were Rotten Tomatoes approved, because I also write things for other outlets, and that's easy to pull out something written, but to if you have to go back through review and find a cohesive, concise statement that sums it up, it's impossible if you didn't plan it out ahead of time, because it has to also be true to what you did say, because otherwise it'll be taken down.
Well, and your pull quote's not even on Rotten Tomatoes for September 5, because I
Oh,
was going to read yours, but you haven't updated it yet.
I'm majorly behind on that.
I
Okay.
really wish you would do it. But anyway, overall, I think it's a fun event.
Yes. I mean, it felt less. I mean, this was my second time attending the ceremony, my fourth year there, but uh, I, again, it was a stressful day. There's a lot going on. It felt a little chaotic, I think, in my mind, but, and the food felt exactly the same as last year.
Well, moving on to the restaurant section, I guess the only thing we can talk about is the food at the awards ceremony last night, which I was trying to think what did my meal remind me of, and then I realized it reminds me of those healthy choice bowls, those steamers.
Uh huh. With the cream on it that has no taste, and
Yeah, the food we were served last night tasted exactly like one of those healthy choice steamers.
which
Because
isn't bad,
no,
but I mean, uh,
but do you know what I'm talking about? There's one specifically that I remember because we used to eat those back in the day, the cafe steamers.
yes,
And yes, it's the cafe steamers. And there's one in particular that's like chicken with green beans and potato. Oh, it's the honey glazed turkey and potatoes.
God.
I felt like my meal tasted like that one. Like it was fine. I was very
At
hungry.
that point, we needed to eat.
And we hadn't eaten dinner, and I had already had three, like 8-ounce pours of red wine. So I needed to eat. So we had a caprese salad, and the table we were literally put at the very back, like the end table, which was fine. And there were 4 seats at the table that were not occupied. So that tells me we really got the last table to fill. But they had set all the uh, settings before people were seated. So the salads and the desserts were already on the table. And I was so hungry, I was about to start eating those empty caprese salads. But those were fine. There was bread. I tore that bread up because I was trying to soak up the wine. The chicken with green beans and potatoes were okay.
Mhm.
And then the dessert was tiramisu.
I haven't really been eating dessert. That was not what I wanted to, break that habit with.
Well, on top of the slice of tiramisu, there was a piece of chocolate that said Lafka, and it was like white chocolate. And for some reason, it was very good to me. So I took those off of some other desserts.
And what did I say? That's like you were doing shark fin soup,
I know. I mean, I did eat 2 desserts though. So
but it was tasteless.
it tasted like cruise ship dessert,
Yes.
but I was hungry and it was sugary and it it served its purpose. Moving on to our segment 5 on the black hand side. 5 black filmmakers who are not Tyler Perry. Who do you have up first?
Oh, by the way, did you see that there are, stills released for season 2 of Beauty in Black.
What?
The second season comes out on
Part 2 of Beauty in Black?
yeah, March something or other comes out. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Let me see here. How did you see these stills?
Because I
What?
saw a headline.
First
I didn't look at
look.
them.
Let me see here. What do we have? Okay.
Okay, all right.
Well, I mean, it's all the same. It looks like the first season.
Well, you know it's gonna
Although the one, uh, I don't think we saw this. Did you look at them?
no.
One of them is Debbie Morgan sitting in a living room smoking a cigarette, and it looks like there's a body in a bag.
Oh,
So that's new.
maybe it's Richard Lawson.
Ooh, someone's okay. Well,
Well, we have that to look forward to
we have
next
that
month.
to look forward to. But moving on to more quality things and people. Who do you have
Uh,
up first?
Charles Stone III. No, and ring any bells?
I
Sorry,
know.
I didn't mean to quiz you. He's probably best known, I guess, for Drumline, maybe Mr.
Is
3000.
Drumline with Nick Cannon?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mr. 3000 with Bernie Mac. My favorite film of his is Paid in Full with Mekhi
Wait, is
Phifer.
Leela and Eve with J Lo and
Lila and Eve is Viola Davis and J Lo, and that's one of the few films where J Lo I think kind of shines in a strange, bizarre way. We've also reviewed his film The Underdogs with Snoop
oh, I
Dogg, and
liked that
uh-huh.
one.
And then I think we both were relatively uh, enthusiastic about his made-for-TV film Crazy Sexy Cool about TLC.
Did we watch that at an acquaintance's house?
We did, yes. Who was
Oh,
offended that we assumed that he had BET.
that's right. And this
Uh-huh.
was a black man, y'all.
He was a little whitewashed, but we're like, no, we just he told us that
You watch a lot of
he said
TV,
he watches like hour oodles of TV every day, and they're like, and
and I
we
was hoping he had BET because we didn't have cable back then.
yeah, and then he got all huffy, but that's where we watched it.
Um, he's probably listening. I don't
I doubt it.
know. Moving on.
Ryan Coogler, who really needs no introduction, but you can't not talk about contemporary black directors with he's on the forefront of them because of the Black Panther films.
Hmm.
Um, he also did Creed, but I still think his first film to date is his debut, Fruitvale Station.
Hmm. Next,
Victoria Mahoney, who you and I have actually met about
we
a
have
decade ago
we
at
did
a party, yeah,
at
somebody's house, another film
in the
director's house.
hills. Yes.
Anyway, she to date has only directed one film. Her debut was Yelling to the Sky with Zoe Kravitz, and I believe it was Gabourey's follow up to Precious.
Oh,
And she's directed a lot of TV, done a lot of other things, including working as an AD, I think, on a Star Wars feature. But apparently, she's the one who directed The Old Guard 2, which
nice.
comes out sometime this year. Although I'm not excited for that because I really didn't like the first Old Guard, which Gina
Well, we're
Prince.
staying
I
positive in
know.
this section.
Excuse me. Yes,
Next.
this is somebody that's on the tip of a contemporary moment is Khalil Joseph for a film I just saw of his, which was one of the best things I happened to see out of this Sundance crop with Black News Terms and Conditions, which almost got yanked because I think the backers were upset that he might have submitted a different cut to the film festivals that they didn't see, so it almost didn't premiere there. But it's also slated for Berlin.
Oh, and last but
But it's based. It's a extension. It's a larger extension of a previous work of the same name, and it's really kind of undefinable because it's kind of a documentary, but also a kind of a personal memoir, and also a pseudo fictional film because there's this journalist who's undercover on this cruise liner that's doing a secret investigation, and it's also about the legacy of W.E.B. Du Bois. There's a lot going on, but I did really like it.
and lastly,
Lastly, on this crop, I have Angela Robinson, and I She's probably still best known for her first 2 features, which were Debs and Herbie Fully Loaded, which was a Lindsay Lohan reboot of an old property. I don't know if you're familiar with either of those,
I'm familiar with Herbie Fully Loaded.
but I highly recommend her 2017 feature, Professor Marston and the Wonder Women, and it's about the man behind the original Wonder Woman comic strip, uh, and his kind of throuple that he was in with 2 women, and how that really influenced a very highly sexual origin of the original material that has since been, I dare I say, erased or scrubbed.
Hmm. Well, thank you for that. Moving on to films released we didn't cover. Love Hurts.
Uh, I think we would have we had the opportunity to see an early screening of The Monkey, which coincided when Love Hurts screened. Also, Love Hurts screened only like 2 days before the release, so that is not a good sign. But I would love to see it for Ki Kwan. This is his first role post Oscar win, but I have a feeling it's not going to be good.
The trailer looked, I mean, I was not fully interested. I find him charming, but
Same, and it's a directorial debut by Jonathan Eusebio, who is a stunt coordinator.
I honestly don't know when I'd ever watch that movie.
I don't
Someone would
know.
have to choose it for Patreon, I think.
But, I mean, I think we would have tried to fit it in if I wasn't flying out today, but, it's just, we won't be having coverage of that.
Next, Parthenope.
I loathed this film. I did review it out of Cannes last year, the new Paolo Sorrentino film. You know, he has fallen off for me because my introduction to him was The Great Beauty in
You
2013.
should speak to him directly and let him know your grievances.
Well, he can. I will refer him to my publications. Uh, but I
This,
remember
I like when you say this recording.
the, the,
Such an attitude. Okay. Anyway,
I
why do you hate this man?
I don't hate this man.
Oh,
As I said, I'm sure you remember me showing you The Great Beauty because I loved
wait,
it.
wait, wait. You just said, I'm sure you'll remember to me.
You should remember. You won't. Anyway, love The Great Beauty, which was my first can, and I remember going back and watching his films previous to that. I think The Consequences of Love comes to my mind, and a couple others that were fine. But since then, everything has been like diminishing returns.
Mm.
But In the Hand of God was okay, but I think a lot of his things feel. If you're familiar with Fellini, his things seem like he's just trying to redo some of that. Anyway, strongly disliked Parthenope. It felt like an old man ogling beautiful young women,
Oh,
including the lead
actually,
character.
now that I talk shit, I do think I remember. I remember you talking about this movie in the best and worst
Yes, I'm
video.
sure I had it in my worst because
So I'd like to publicly apologize for casting aspersions on your statement.
but I did not like it. But anyway, that came out.
There is something in the Sorry to This Man section.
Oh yeah,
We reviewed a documentary out of Sundance called Predators, which talks
yes.
about shows like And the Show, To Catch a Predator, hosted by Chris Hansen. And in your passion, you said most victims become victimizers. But what you meant to say was most victimizers are often
They were victims.
victims.
Yes, yes, and that is a slight misspeaking and on Medicine Head, but I mean, is it
I would probably stop and just
okay?
let it be what it was.
Sure,
Okay,
but I
so
mean,
so moving on to projects of
because
interest.
if you take the context of the
Nope.
other words around it, you see my intention. But whatever. Okay, my apologies.
I think it defeats the purpose of apologizing when you do all.
Well,
Anyway,
but I always do say context
it's
is
okay. You can
important.
get canceled on your own. Projects of interest. Something called Saint Vincent.
Yes, Walter Hill is finally making this project he's been trying to get off the ground in 20 years. He's 84 now, keep in mind. But it's got a new
Do I
cat.
know a Walter Hill film?
Yes. Well, he's produced the Alien films, but he also directed Sigourney in The Assignment, which is
Oh,
a kind of a
with
controversial film.
Michelle Rodriguez as
Uh-huh.
a trans
Hitman.
Woman.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, but, I mean, he's got oh, you've seen 48 Hours, you've seen with Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy.
I would recommend The Assignment because I do think it's funny when we find out what happens to Sigourney in
I
the end.
I think Sigourney is
I
fabulous in it.
actually rewatched The Assignment recently.
I'll fast forward it to her scenes because I think Michelle is not very good, and I think Sigourney it feels like her first camp performance, but anyway, he has been trying to make this film. It's about a hitman who's posing as a priest to get close to his next target, and the new cast includes Samuel L. Jackson and Forrest. Oh wait, no, he's in the old. Oh, Samuel Jackson, Jim Caviezel, and Al Pacino are the new ones attached.
Oh, and something called Diamond Shitter.
Yeah.
Okay.
New project from Antonio Campbell Hughes, I believe her sophomore film, starring Ava Green, Ben Whishaw, and Alessandro Nivola. And I think it's about a young woman that goes to work for this wealthy family, and she consumes their diamonds, and
Oh,
then weird things start happening to them
so
in her
it's
body.
literally.
She's literally shitting diamonds.
Oh, well, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. This past week on our Patreon, we reviewed the film Wild, starring Stephen Fry.
Yes, not Reese Witherspoon
Oh, there's a Reese Witherspoon movie called Wild.
without the E on the end. Yeah.
Oh, is that where she's like backpacking or something?
Yep. Hmm.
I don't know why I know that. Unfortunately, there is an entry in the obituary section. Irv Gotti died. Um, he was like in his early 50s, and I think it was due to complications to like his health was,
I think he had a lot of health issues.
yeah, like he had a stroke and I think he had
He had
diabetes.
several strokes.
Yeah, but he, I mean, I know him as having created Murder Inc., which we can thank for like Ja Rule, Ja Rule, which whenever I think of Ja Rule, I think of that
Are
J.
you Ellie?
Right. And I'm like, over a decade, I'm like,
Yep.
what the hell?
Who's Ellie?
And then it's like, oh, she's spelling his name.
Hmm.
Ashanti, DMX.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So he's gone.
Yes, and then we have 50 Cent clowning him on Instagram after his death.
Wow.
Classy.
50 Cent is a bully.
Yes.
The secret film this week was your choice, and you chose the 1999 American romance film, The Annihilation of Fish, directed by Charles Burnett.
Uh-huh.
Why did you choose this film?
Because appropriately it is opening in New York on February 14th, and it has never been screened outside of its premiere at the Toronto Film Festival in 1999 because it was purchased by a distributor and then buried because of a bad review in Variety. And so for a long time, this has never been available anywhere, and I have long wanted to see it. So, and then also being Black History Month, I'm like, this is perfect to talk about a Charles Burnett feature that I've never seen.
Are we familiar with Charles Burnett's other films?
Yes, well, we should be, but Killer of Sheep, 1978 independent feature is very famous and iconic. It had a resurgence in 2007, and I think it's kind of hard to find a copy again of right now, but that is highly recommended. It's probably easiest to see another one of his celebrated titles, which is To Sleep with Anger, starring Danny Glover, because Criterion put that out, thankfully. I also highly recommend. There are some things I haven't loved. I don't think his Ice Cube, uh, although it is weird seeing Ice Cube play a cop in 1994 in The Glass Shield. I don't love that film. He also uh, adapted Dorothy West's The Wedding, starring Halle Berry and Lynn Whitfield for television in the early 90s, which I've never seen and have always wanted to. Um, My Brother's Wedding is also highly celebrated from 1983 that I've never seen, but he's a big deal. He's a trailblazer.
What is The Annihilation of Fish about? A woman who believes a dead composer is in love with her falls in love with a man who constantly fights an imaginary man named Hank. What is your pull quote?
At times kooky and peculiar, the Annihilation of Fish never really hits its stride. Crushed by zany, overwrought character tics, a trio of accomplished actors can never distance themselves enough from to channel genuine human emotion.
You know, mine. Its trio of veteran actors make The Annihilation of Fish highly watchable, but this camp endeavor is difficult to take seriously. Yeah, this is a really odd bird. I would highly recommend people check it out because it is zany.
And it's coming with a ton of champions. Like there's Scorsese quotes all over it. And it was a labor of love for this to ever get a release. And it stars three people I really like. Maybe not necessarily in this, but so I it feels like a novelty to get to see it now.
So there are really only three people in the film. The two leads are James Earl Jones and Lynn Redgrave,
Hmm.
and then a supporting character played by Margot Kidder.
Hmm.
The story is very simple. Lynn Redgrave and James Earl Jones move into a boarding house in LA, which I didn't realize those existed in the late 90s in that area.
Uh-huh.
But they both move in, not knowing each other, complete strangers. We don't know where. Well, James Earl Jones is from New York, I think.
I think, and Redgrave was in San Francisco.
And they moved to this boarding house in LA around the same time, and they both happen to be severely mentally ill. And we'll get to it. But they move into this boarding house. It's run by Margot Kidder, who is also mentally ill.
Uh-huh.
And it turns out it's only the three of them in this house. And Lynn Redgrave and James Earl Jones fall in love, but as they become sexually intimate, the demon that James Earl Jones is fighting, this imaginary man named Hank, starts to go away. And he doesn't like that. So that upsets.
And the demon Hank goes away because Fish, James Earl Jones, has made Lynn Redgrave their referee.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's confusing to try to explain now because it's so out of control, insane. But James Earl Jones is upset that his demon Hank has gone away, and then of course that upsets Lynn Redgrave because she's in love with him. James Earl Jones gets really sick with pneumonia, and then because he's kind of depressed that he doesn't have this demon to fight, we're told that he doesn't want to fight the pneumonia. So Lynn Redgrave says, "Well, I'll kill myself," and we'll get into that scene. But then that sort of wakes him up, and he realizes that he should be happy that he has her. So the end of the film is that those two get married, and we see Margot Kidder in the front lawn receiving a postcard from those two while they're honeymooning in Jamaica. And it's important to know that a symbol is made that all three of their demons are buried in the front yard. Hank, the James Earl Jones demon. I didn't even mention Lynn Redgrave. She left San Francisco because she believes she's in a relationship with the composer Puccini,
Uh-huh.
and an abusive, toxic relationship. And
An
so
an invisible Puccini,
an
yes.
invisible Puccini. So she leaves San Francisco. So Puccini's buried in the front yard. And then Margot Kidder's crazy ass is stuck on her dead husband who couldn't give her children, and he died related to some weed. So she spent all these years watering this weed. So she has since pulled out weed and buried it, which I think is funny because watch that weed grow out of that damn
Right.
burial site. But that's the end. It is as ridiculous as it sounds, and it's just kind of wild to think that you have these three accomplished people. Also, well, particularly Lynn Redgrave and Margot Kidder look crazy.
Yes.
Lynn Redgrave is giving us a performance,
Oh,
but
yes.
I mean, it's uncomfortably bad. And then James Earl Jones, we get several scenes of him wrestling an Invisible Man that look like they were kind of strenuous.
James Earl Jones is going in, and it is amusing, but it also gets kind of boring and taxing.
I have a lot of notes, so I think let's just go through those because I'm sure you'll be able to fill in the blanks. But let's start with the source material.
Oh yeah, so it's with a writer that I am not familiar with, Anthony. C. Winkler. Do I have that right?
So he wrote a short story that
He,
this movie is based on.
yes, and his probably this Jamaican novelist, very white Jamaican novelist.
You showed me a picture of this novelist, and Jamaican culture is a big part of this movie, which we'll get to. But
Yeah.
when you showed me a picture of the gentleman who wrote the short story, you know what he looks like to be?
Who?
Bruce Davison.
Yeah. Yep. Very
Isn't he
good.
from X-Men?
Yes,
Yeah,
and longtime companion
yeah.
and many other things. His I think his most famous, well, his biggest bestseller, I think, was a book called The Lunatic, which was adapted, but I haven't seen.
Do
But yeah,
we
so I'm not familiar with his prose.
I'm assuming this is being released in limited.
It starts off in New York only, and then I think it'll have a short extension beyond that.
I would recommend people check. Oh, the American Cinematheque is screening it. So here in LA, people can see it in Los Feliz.
Oh, when is that?
Uh, February 20th.
Oh, wow. So the week after. So yeah, New York first, and then
Yeah, I mean, for people in New York and LA, I would, I think I would watch this again, like in a theater, because I would love
it's
if
kooky.
someone wants to take me to this movie on the 20th and buy me dinner, I would go.
Uh, Especially, we just all three of them are dead, and of the actors, and we just lost Mr. Jones.
We
So
did.
it's kind of it's fitting, I guess.
But, I'm going to talk about how ridiculous this movie is, but I do think it's bold in its storytelling, and it's a pleasure to see these three actors. I enjoyed watching it with you
Yeah,
because we
same.
were laughing, which is not the intention, I'm sure. I do think that its depiction of mental illness and how it can be cured, I guess, is a little reckless. But
Uh-huh.
I mean, based on my pull quote, clearly, I don't think this movie is successful.
No,
But
because it's their well, they're leaning into the mental illnesses because of their isolation and loneliness in a lot of ways.
so I knew we were in trouble because the opening of the film, while the credits are rolling, we see James Earl Jones in a church,
Uh-huh.
and the pastor's giving his sermon. And all of a sudden, James Earl Jones starts acting like it was giving Halle Berry as the crackhead and what's the Spike Lee movie she's in where she's the crackhead with Samuel L.
Jungle
Jackson?
Fever.
Jungle Fever. Because he's kind of like tweaking, and then he thinks someone touched him, and then all of a sudden he's on the ground.
Yep.
And the next thing we see him with who I'm assuming is his case manager.
Hmm.
And then this is where it gets real crazy because the case manager is like, basically, I'm so tired of you being crazy. I'm going to deinstitutionalize you. So we see that James Earl Jones lives in like some sort of mental health facility. And I guess they're so tired of his antics that they kick his ass out. And that's how he ends up moving to this boarding house in LA.
And I'm not sure how Margot Kidder, Mrs. Muldoon, was advertising her home.
Okay, well, you know
I would
what?
be curious to know that.
Put a pin in that because I'm going to talk about that right after I talk about how we meet Lynn Redgrave,
Okay.
because we see her at what looks like,
It's like an outdoor performance of Madame
you know
Butterfly.
what it reminded me of? That beautiful Japanese garden in Little Tokyo here in LA.
Hmm.
So it's this beautiful garden, and there is some sort of opera performance. It probably is Madame Butterfly, but forgive me if I'm wrong.
Well, because that's Puccini, and then she dons that garb later on.
And Lynn Redgrave, while all these people are trying to enjoy this performance, she starts singing opera, and she is not good. She's
No,
no Kathleen Battle. So, of course, people are upset.
kind of Florence Foster Jenkins.
Yes. And then she goes to a wedding chapel. And this scene really took me out because she goes to the wedding chapel, and the owners, like the people who run it, see her trying to come in, and they're like, oh no, get ready. And then this lady walks in and tries to get married to her companion, her invisible companion. And the man running the shop tells his wife, I guess, to go get a gun. Like they're going to shoot her. So she recognizes that she's in trouble and leaves. But okay. So the opening of the film where we meet the two leads already let me know what this movie was going to be.
Hmm.
But yeah, then these two severely, I mean, what would you say? At the bare minimum, they're suffering from severe hallucinations, which would
Yeah,
make me think that they're what, like
some kind
schizophrenic
of, yeah, schizophrenia.
or
Hmm.
schizoaffective disorder?
Yeah,
I don't know. We need our DSM ladies to help us. But the it's I mean, it's just so unbelievable how either of them made their way to this boarding house in LA. And like you said, without the internet and how did they find how did they how did they find these accommodations?
Well, especially because there's a little bit of magical realism to the film. So I don't know. It would have been funny seeing what led them both to this place.
Well, let's put a pin in that because I want to come back to that. But we this film has been apparently restored
Yes.
by I think
UCLA.
like their film studies department. But I have to say, the closed captioning, I've never seen closed captioning so inaccurate. Lynn Redgrave's character's name is Flower, but she says everyone calls her Poinsettia.
Uh-huh.
Did you ever see the word poinsettia in these
Just
captions?
once when Lynn Redgrave says it, because James Earl Jones's Jamaican accent.
Oh no. Please, we have to elaborate on his Jamaican accent.
Oh, but every time he says her name, the subtitles are wild.
You know how people say don't call me out my name? They don't ever say poinsettia after she says it. At one point, they type out when someone says poinsettia, they type out what's that idiot?
That's when Margot Kidder says it.
Okay, well, since you brought it up, James Earl Jones' character is supposed to be Jamaican.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I thought, oh, is he like, does his mental illness and his delusions lead him to believe he's Jamaican? But then it turns out, because we hear from his caseworker, that he is in fact Jamaican.
Yeah.
James, it's so tragic that a man who is known for his exquisite voice work and legendary take as Mufasa in The Lion King
And Darth Vader.
that his Jamaican accent in this movie is worse than that one time Denzel tried to do a British accent.
That was bad. Yeah,
Can you?
Denzel.
It goes in and out. I mean, there were times when you were like, "Is he trying to do a British
Yeah.
accent?" And then,
When
can you try to mimic how he says poinsettia?
it's like poinsettia.
Poinsettia, poinsettia.
The emphasis is wild.
It's wild as hell. It's so out of control.
Because I was trying not to read the closed captions after a while because they're so bad. But when he would say her name, it would take my brain a second to be like, oh, he's saying her name.
He's saying her name. Okay. James Earl Jones looks like James Earl Jones.
Yeah. Well, like he did for a long time. Yeah.
Lynn Redgrave, I wrote down that she looks like, especially when we first meet her trying to get married and she's wearing the veil and she's wearing this garish ass makeup, which we need to get back to whatever happened to Baby Jane. But
Mm-hmm.
when I first see her wearing her like wedding garb, I thought she could play one of those spirits in the next Insidious movie.
Oh, God.
Didn't she look like that thing that Patrick Wilson was scared of?
Yeah, she looks garish. I mean, I think Lynn Redgrave, like all of the Redgraves and Richardsons, are all fabulous actors. But when she was young, she always she reminds me of Varla Jean Merman. But it's funny to think she was hot off an Oscar nod for Gods and Monsters when she
With Sir Patrick or Sir
Ian McKellen.
Oh, Ian McKellen.
And Brendan Fraser.
That's right.
About James Whale. God, I haven't seen that in forever. But yeah, when she filmed this, but she looks really bleary.
Oh God. Can you talk about whatever happened to Baby Jane?
Well, I guess you didn't know this, but the Redgrave sisters starred in a television version of Baby Jane in like 91.
I'm really excited to see it. And then you told me there's a riff tracks.
Yeah, because I looked it up. I haven't looked it up in forever. There's a riff tracks with the two ladies, Mary Jo Pehl and that other one.
I kind of want to watch it now.
I kind of do too. But I watched that on TV with my mother, and I was in first grade.
Oh God.
Because I remember my mother being like, the Redgrave sisters. And I was like, who? As if, I was like, who is that? But yeah, I could rewatch that for sure.
So when we first okay, so James Earl Jones is James Earl Jones, and to think that Lynn Redgrave in this movie is the same age as Sigourney Weaver was in
Snowcake
is wild because she looks crazy as hell. And then because she's only 58 in this
56.
movie, 56, and then Margot Kidder
is only 51.
And they try to make her look old, and they give her literally like a $10 wig, like a
Yes.
like a silver synthetic wig. And to think that she's the same age as Sigourney Weaver was in Heartbreakers is
Yeah.
crazy.
Uh-huh.
I don't why did they cast Margot Kidder this role?
I mean, it's good to see her work in something semi-decent.
I know that Margot Kidder suffered from
She had some mental
some
health
mental health
issues. Uh-huh.
issues. So I mean, it's kind of I don't know. It feels kind of icky to see her playing. Her character is loony, and we know she's loony because when we first meet her, she's showing James Earl Jones the room, and she's going on and on about it. You can steal all my money, you can whoop my ass,
You
you
can
can
say spread poisonous gossip.
gossip about me, but if you misspell my name, that I cannot forgive.
And she has such an awkward name.
And then when Lynn Redgrave shows up, she gives her the same spiel about you can kill my firstborn, you can put a dent in my Honda Accord, but if you misspell my name, I can never forgive you. And then in both instances, after she says that, she asks them to remind her of their names. And I'm like, is this supposed to be
I
funny?
think it is. Yeah.
Because it's uncomfortable.
But then we get a look inside Margot Kidder's relationship with the spelling of her name,
Well, let's talk about that.
because apparently with her husband who left her childless and died, she was so angry about it that she decided to butcher his last name by adding an E to it.
Okay, I'm not familiar with the writer of the short story this is based on. I haven't read the short story. Usually I assume that the source material was compelling and that's why someone thought to make a movie about it.
Sure.
And I could see I feel like any kindness I have to the story is really me trying hard because I think it's just so heavy handed. It feels like it's in poor taste a lot of the time. We haven't even gotten to the score, which I think is like whimsical and childish for like just inappropriately so. But I just yeah, I don't I think the symbolism is really heavy and the way they treat mental illness, and we'll get to it and sort of
Well,
how they're
because for a moment, I'm like, it was reminding me of The Lonely Passion of Judith Hearn with Maggie Smith and Bob Hoskins,
which is a
where,
movie I thought was very well done.
yeah,
And
where,
Maggie Smith is very compelling.
but this alcoholic who's forced to move into a boarding house and try to snag the attentions of this, semi-interesting man that's also affiliated with it. But this is trying very hard to be whimsical.
Well, like you said, there's some sort of magical realism to it. Like whenever James Earl Jones wrestles his demon Hank, he throws it out the window from his second story bedroom or apartment. And whenever it falls out of the window, it falls into like this big bush, and we see the bush move. So like something fell.
Yeah.
And then I think even at one point, Lynn Redgrave throws out Hank's imaginary boots,
Hmm.
and the bush moves as well. So it's like I think if this were handled differently, I could buy into a lot of stuff. But as it is, it just feels like it's so unserious. Like, how are these people functioning? Like,
Right.
I don't even believe that Lynn Redgrave's character could have figured out how to find this housing.
Well, right, and because she's hits the booze hard.
Okay, we didn't even talk about that, but Lynn Redgrave's character, the first night, well, when we first meet her back in San Francisco, she's clearly a drunk. But the first night she stays in LA, she gets up, gets all gussied up, and goes to a bar. And that scene is funny because she's sitting at the bar smoking a
Her
cigarette,
legs, she has very nice legs. They're out on display.
and this very attractive man walks up to her. And immediately we're like, oh no. Because he's looking at her from the back.
Yeah.
And then when she turns around, that man goes, "Oh,
He goes, "I thought you were someone
I
else."
thought you were someone else."
And she goes, "I used to be."
I used to be. I mean, that's a comedy.
The
It's a
look
sad, dark
the
comedy,
look on her face is when like at night and you hear something digging in your garbage and you shine a flashlight and the raccoon looks at you,
or a
or
possum on a
pot
fence.
like
Yeah,
kind of shocked, like, "What are you
when
doing?"
when you open the hood of your car and there's a possum buried in there, and they're
Like
like, eh.
kind of interested but frightened.
But getting back to the symbolism, I just think like there's too much going on. These two people are severely mentally ill. Lynn Redgrave, in addition to that, is a like, I mean, she's a grade A drunk.
Mhm. Some depression issues for sure. She's also able to vocalize where her pretend Puccini was coming from.
Right. And then James Earl Jones, he he's working on building this structure out of burned matchsticks,
Yes.
which is used in the end because when he finally decides that he needs to stop with this foolishness, he burns down the structure.
Yeah.
And I don't know. The more I think about it, I just don't know how you could cram all of this into a short story. So it just feels like,
Well, the film kind of hits a repetitive cycle at the midway point where it's like, if I have to see him go ask for her to referee for another one of his goddamn fights,
right.
I'm going to go crazy.
Well, another repetitive recurring thing is that they build this love story is built on them playing cards.
Yeah,
We get like 5 scenes.
rummy.
Rummy. We get 5 scenes where they're playing cards, and James Earl Jones seems to not understand how to play the game because at the last time we get like 3 or 4. No, actually, we get 4 references to how much money he owes her.
Hmm.
Because at first it's like $20, then $1,600, then $9,000. And then at the end, when he's on his deathbed, she goes, "You can't die. You owe me $15,000." I don't even know what I think. I don't understand why building this relationship over playing cards. Like, what do you make of that?
Uh,
I just don't.
the means to an end. Like I,
Well, speaking of that, once Lynn Redgrave gets to, because when we meet her in San Francisco, she's crazy as hell, and walking around talking to the. I mean, she's crazy because she sits down on a park bench with the crazy lady feeding the birds,
and that lady leaves the
and
breadcrumbs
that lady
behind.
is like, "Ooh, this bitch is crazy," and leaves. So when Lynn Redgrave gets to LA, she stops seeing Puccini. And it's not until the hour mark, I think, where we understand why. But at first, I was getting a little like, okay, because now that she's seeing James Earl Jones talking to his imaginary demon, she's acting like, "You're weird, you're crazy."
Like it
It's like,
almost.
bitch, you spent the first part of this movie trying to get married to an imaginary man.
Well, it's like when two kind of depressed people get together and one realizes like I have to shape up or we'll sink together.
Well, then she explains that she left Puccini in San Francisco, so that's why she hasn't seen him. But again, because James Earl Jones seems so sick when because one night they're supposed like now that they Lynn Redgrave and James Earl Jones have started like dating, I guess, and they start being sexual.
Oh God, that then it gets.
But I think it's prior to them actually having sex, where they're supposed to go out for like a drink, and then Lynn Redgrave's all depressed because she's thinking about her man, and then she spends some time explaining to James Earl Jones, and she's like, "Don't laugh, don't laugh. I never laugh at you. Well, I have this lover who used to beat me, and blah blah blah." And we also get reference to because in the beginning of the film we see Lynn Redgrave like masturbating twice,
Uh-huh.
and we find out that that was her by twice a week sex sessions with her,
That was some Puccini pleasure, yeah.
which made me think of the movie The Entity with Barbara Hershey.
Yeah.
But he tries to comfort her and he says, "Well, let me make you dinner." And then magically we cut to them eating a full Jamaican meal
Uh-huh.
with he cooks some curry goat. Like it just seems kind of wild. Like that he's even able to manage that.
Well, especially because she gets fussy about eating goat, and she'd already eaten a bit of it, it seemed. But
So then
anyway.
things start to get really tedious to me. And you already mentioned this when Lynn Redgrave starts playing referee
Ugh.
to James Earl Jones and his demon wrestling. I just found that embarrassing. And not because of, people having these hallucinations, but just these two actors trying to get through this scene. And James Earl Jones, and he's wearing this, at this point, he has this barrel body, and then he's wearing this white rib tank top, and he's trying to wrestle this thing and throwing his body on the ground. It just feels like I felt bad that he wasted his efforts on such a silly premise, but yeah, she does it twice or 3 times where she referees, and it's like, ugh.
Yes, and it's usually those moments where dislike the score because it takes on this hokiness that it's supposed to convey that these are supposed to be kind of lighthearted scenes, but that the accompaniment makes me depressed.
Backtracking a little bit, the first time James Earl Jones interacts with Lynn Redgrave, he finds her passed out in the hallway drunk one night. And he's trying to wake her up. She won't wake up. So he carries her into her apartment, throws her on the couch. So when she wakes up, he's like in the kitchen doing push-ups because that's how he's learned to pretend that he's working out, like practicing wrestling, so that whenever people see him fighting his demon, he can just say, I'm exercising,
Ugh.
even though it doesn't look anything of the sort. But Lynn Redgrave wakes up with a hangover and blurry eyes, and she accuses James Earl Jones of raping her. And what does he say? The Queen of Sheba. He's like, in my current condition, I wouldn't be able to rape the Queen of Sheba without her assistance. And I think he's implying he's impotent because when Lynn Redgrave and James Earl Jones finally have sex, can you try to describe that scene?
Well, they're both seem surprised that he's seems to have an erection.
Because isn't it her who goes, "Oh God, it's working, it's
Oh yeah.
working."
She gets very excited. And then post coitus, she's like, I think I can get it to work again.
And she starts giving him a handy, and he's like, "I'm." What does he
He
say?
said it's
Like,
not a cow's tit.
or an udder. So yeah, you're not milking a cow's tit. But then it seems like he gets erect again, so they get excited. Watching people of a certain age be sexual is something I appreciate in film,
Sure.
but in this instance, it feels uncomfortable.
Well, it's just wow. Like, is this solving any of their problems?
So after they start being sexually active, James Earl Jones' demon goes away, and then he realizes that the reason it went away is because he's having sex with the referee. So then it's clear that he misses his demon. Like if
Conflict of interest.
Yeah, he says it would be like a juror sleeping with the judge or
The
something.
plaintiffs, the
Or the
plaintiffs,
plaintiff.
yeah,
So then he stops touching Vanessa Redgrave, and then that really affects their
for
relationship.
like a day.
So then, of course, Lynn Redgrave wants to do something about it. So what does she do? This lady has a gun. Lynn Redgrave has a pistol, and she goes into James Earl Jones' apartment and shoots and kills the imaginary demon. And James Earl Jones is devastated.
Uh-huh.
And we get the sense that he is mourning the loss of the demon for quite some time because Margot Kidder has to come to his apartment and tell him that he needs to remove the demon because she can smell its decomposing body.
And
And
she
then
doesn't want
and
cockroaches.
she doesn't want cockroaches, and she can see that he has it covered up. I mean,
So they decide to give it a Christian burial in the backyard.
and then that's when James Earl Jones becomes sick. We see him collapse on the stairs. A doctor comes over and says James Earl Jones has pneumonia and he needs to go to a hospital. They're like, no, no, no. And I thought a funny moment that felt legitimate is the doctor. He's like, do you three live here alone? I can get a nurse to come by 24/7. Like, clearly these three people should not be but then the final part of the movie is James Earl Jones convalescing, and we're told that by Margot Kidder, like he doesn't want to fight it. He wants to die.
Because, and she chastises Lynn Redgrave, you killed his dream. You can't kill somebody's dream.
So Lynn Redgrave, all of a sudden, and
Well,
for anyone who noticed on our Instagram that I posted a video of Lynn Redgrave holding a pistol and
putting on
putting on
Madam
kabuki makeup,
to be Madam Butterfly.
she goes and grabs her pistol, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's gonna kill herself. She puts on kabuki makeup and then walks in her full Madam Butterfly and starts singing, and then says she's gonna kill herself and shoots the gun but doesn't hit herself. And James Earl Jones grabs her and says, oh, come on,
I love you.
I love you, gal. I love you, Poppy. And then that's when we see all their demons buried and that they got married. Man,
Wow.
this shit is, again, I would watch it a second time.
Oh, it's very
I want to be around other people.
it's very singular in a lot of ways, but it's just so shitty that a bad review in Variety like
I
got
agree with you that it's a shame, but
let other people. I mean, this is a major film director.
it's like, what were you telling me? Kiss of the Spider Woman.
Yeah.
Got kind of mixed reviews, so now it's having a hard time finding distribution. The new J-Lo film.
Yeah, but it's expensive too. I mean, that's more of a gamble. I can't imagine the distributor paid a ton of money for the Annihilation of Fish.
Yeah, I would be interested in better understanding like what was the issue. I want to believe that it was the like maybe when they purchased the film and then the bad review and then maybe these companies kind of fold and get acquired and it just got lost in the sauce because I see the new distributor is Kino Lorber.
Yes.
So they're a boutique distributor, right?
Yeah, but they have a pretty big library.
But again, I think that if you like any of these people, if you want to see something that's kind of trippy,
Well, if you're familiar with Burnett, I mean, this is already on your radar for sure.
the description for the American Cinematheque screening says that this film is a uniquely funny and touching story of an eccentric pair of aging and delusional visionaries who fight together to overcome loneliness and to rediscover a sense of purpose in their later years. Their humorous and heartfelt struggle binds them and reveals a deeper understanding beneath their troubled veneers. I
Well,
don't think it's that deep.
no,
It
and
feels very superficial.
there are elements of it that I could have it feels in the vein of Hal Ashby in the 70s, like Harold and Maude,
I
for
do want to
instance.
circle back to my initial comment, which is I do think that the depiction of mental illness in this film feels reckless because essentially what it's saying is that love and companionship will cure.
Conquers all, yeah.
These people are severely mentally ill. They need to be monitored, maybe medicated. They're certainly vulnerable adults. None of these three people should be living without assistance. So it just seems kind of crazy that it ends with like, oh, they just got over it. Okay.
Kick the can.
But I'm not judging this film like this is problematic. It just feels, like thankfully we have evolved in our understanding of mental health and the importance of taking things seriously and like it's not this simple. I think this description of the film is being very like it's almost like revisionist. Like
Kind of. Well, and I almost thought at the beginning with the deinstitutionalization of James Earl Jones's character that, that is kind of what happened. These people were kind of cast out into the streets because listening to studies done on the explosion of the unhoused in major cities,
sure,
it's
sure.
because those kind of services were no longer allowed or offered this kind of housing for people that had some kind of issues that they benefited from at one point. So that's no longer available, but it doesn't really go down that route.
Yeah. What would you give the Annihilation of Fish?
Unfortunately, I think Lynn Redgrave is the best of these three.
Well, when you say best, you mean fun.
Fun is I had the most fun with her. James Earl, that Jamaican accent was sending me. Uh, Unfortunately, I maybe I just was looking too because I rewatched Killer of Sheep today. I think I was very excited to see this and was a bit disappointed, but a two is what I'm going to give it.
It's unsuccessful in my opinion. I I would give it 2 out of 5. That being said, again, I if it's available to you, whether in a theater near you or ultimately streaming, I would highly recommend checking it out because, like, I mean, like you said, it is a singular experience.
Hmm.
All right. Well, this is our 199th podcast,
Yes,
which means our next podcast will be our 200th podcast.
yes,
But you won't be here,
I'll be there.
you'll be there
Hmm.
in Berlin. And I didn't want to record our 200th podcast via Zoom because I just don't like recording on Zoom anyway. So I thought we'll give it a rest next week. I deserve a break. I also think people need time to reflect on how much they should appreciate us.
Okay.
So so next week I want everyone during our absence to think about how much they appreciate us. But then once you return, then we'll record our 200th podcast episode.
Yes.
Although I don't know, I might have a change of well, no, I don't want to do that. Maybe to fill in the gap, I'll record like a bonus something by myself, but I
Okay.
won't call it the 200th episode. And then we can choose. I don't know that we'll do anything special for the 200th episode, but I think it should be a pretty good movie selection.
Will it be yours?
Oh, it'll be mine.
Yes. And remember,
Well,
it's Black History Month.
oh, okay. Well, I'll choose wisely, and then you'll talk about Berlin.
Yes.
So there'll be plenty to talk about. But is there anything you'd like to say on the eve of our 200th episode? Did you think you would last this long?
No, I mean, we all, you and I started all of this just for something to work on together. And I think assumed no one would be listening. But, at the very end of the day, the benefit would be learning how to, uh, I don't know, kind of challenge ourselves in a way and see what becomes of it. And who knew?
Thank you for those words. Uh, and then we do have a review. There's at least one review dropping next week, I believe.
There is next week.
No? Oh, Mom.
Oh God,
Yeah.
no one's checking for that.
No one's checking for Mom?
N-
Oh.
I don't believe so. But I think you are going to see Captain America: Brave New World on your own.
Yeah, I'm going to go to see that. Well, I haven't,
Well,
because I'll have to review it by
we're
myself.
gonna see. It might be if I can fit it in. I'm sure that it'll be released in Berlin, and I would help you if I could. But we can discuss. And
I've watched that trailer. Oh, that speaking of our Uber Black car ride to the award show last night. For anyone who cares, the car we were in was a BMW i7, so it had theater mode where
mhm.
like the sunroof just kind of drops and the screen was huge, and then the seats reclined and the window blinds went up. What did you think of that experience?
Oh, once that happened, because I didn't like what the driver was listening to, that helped.
But the first thing we watched when the screen popped up, because he said it was kind of awkward because he had to basically give us access to his YouTube.
Yes.
So watching people's like YouTube account and like the kind of stuff they watch to me is interesting. Because if someone looked at mine, it would be all like body cam footage, interrogation videos, and like
Hmm.
well, and then coffee house music and probably Janet Jackson. But yeah, he had some interesting stuff on there. But anyway, the first thing we watched was that new Marvel trailer. So now I've seen it 3 times.
Uh-huh.
And when I tell y'all I could not care less about this
Oh
movie,
yeah, I could care less about it as
that was the
well.
point of all of that.
And why are you taking this Aldous Huxley title?
Ugh.
But will as much as you hate it, most likely we will be doing a review while I'm gone together of The Gorge.
Well, I'm hoping that you're supposed to have access today, so I'm hoping we can watch it now and review it together before you leave. But I
Yeah.
am excited to see it because the premise seems interesting. And who are the two leads?
Anya Taylor-Joy and Miles Teller.
Yeah, and I like Anya Taylor Joy, and then of course Sigourney Weaver's in it. So, but I genuinely think it looks like an interesting movie that's gonna kind of be like campy.
Yes, it's available.
Oh, it is
Yep.
available. Oh, so I should end this now so we can watch it. But anyway, thank you for listening. Ta ta.